Hello and welcome back to the VAR You Serious podcast, episode number three. Number three, we are chugging along here, Dad. Third week we're into this, wrapping up the international break. How are you doing?
Good, good. Looking forward to this as always. It's kind of a fun tradition that we're kind of this weekly tradition we're starting, and it's super cool. So we got a lot to talk about as always. So we should jump right in.
Yeah, I hear you. It was a busy night. You and I both watched the U.S. men's national team look half decent for once. Won 2-0 against Japan. What did you think about that?
Oh boy, everything's just fine, Dylan. It's all perfect. It's all gonna work out. Just kidding. No. Yeah, solid result. Still am trying to figure out this whole experimentation process.
Yeah,
Um, you know, I'm just wanting to see as much as possible sooner rather than later our starting 11, whatever that might look like next summer, the closest thing. I'm, like I said before, really hoping to see it in October at those friendlies. Hopefully, guys like Tillman and Jedi are healed up. But yeah, I mean, solid result today. Definitely buys Pochettino and the boys some time. What do you think?
yeah. I mean, I agree. I think it's definitely interesting what's going on, but at the end of the day, I think I disagree with you in the sense that, you know, we need to experiment a little bit. I think it's what we were all crying out for under Berhalter is we needed more change. We needed, I think there's too much complacency that we had talked about before too, and maybe that's helping. Maybe it's not showing in the results yet, but maybe it's helping the overall U.S. camp and U.S. depth chart. Right, we're kind of letting everyone get some minutes in, feel competitive. And I think it's putting the pressure on guys for next summer. And, it's not just a cakewalk to get into the squad anymore. You got to work for it, which I think could be good. But I think this is a wider thing than just the U.S. men's national team, Dad. We're seeing national teams all over the world kind of struggle to meet expectations. We're talking Germany, Nigeria, Italy, just to name a few. I don't know if you've kind of seen what's going on, but what are you thinking about all that?
Before we completely move on from the U.S., I will say Pulisic to Balogun, beautiful. Need to see a lot more of that. Like, that's how we advance next summer. Those kinds of plays. And those kind of plays happen more often? Playing together more often. So I couldn't help it, but wanted to have a compliment in there, but I also wanted to sneak a little additional criticism in there. But yeah, I mean, these big teams, Germany especially, like, wow. I mean, I'm sure they'll be
I
fine.
mean,
I'm
hey,
sure they're
that's
going
a
to
that's a team that's played together forever, though, Dad. Germany's a team that's been together for a while now.
Yeah, true. It's a good point. I don't know why. I just feel like Germany, with their history, can like get away with that more than we can. I'm saying that just gut instinct, no
Or do you think
factual
it's less
basis.
so? Do you think it's less so that they can get away with it because they're bigger? They're expected of more, you know?
For sure. Um, you know, I, as a U.S. fan, I try not to be a Debbie Downer. I try to stay positive, but we don't have that kind of history to lean on. And so I just feel like I'm more confident in Germany being just fine next summer than I am, or Italy, or any of these teams, than I am the United States. Maybe it's because I care about the US more. And so I'm a little more nervous and tightly wound about it. But for whatever reason, I just think that Germany is going to be just fine. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think just fine is an interesting term because you can't use it to classify everyone, right? I mean, what does just fine look like for the US compared to a Germany or an Italy? I mean, talk about Italy. I don't know the last World Cup they made. Did they make 2018? They didn't make the last one. I think 2014
I don't
might
know
be
for
their
sure. I
last
feel like
World
they missed
Cup.
the last two. I think they missed the last two.
I mean,
I'm
talk
not
about
certain.
talk about not being just fine. That's one of the most historic footballing countries in the world, not making the last 2 World Cups. That's the biggest tournament in the on the planet, right? And they're missing.
For whatever it's worth, I might be confusing something about the Euros or whatever, but I'm willing to bet
And they
$10
won
they
the Euros. They won the Euros. I'll put that
right.
out there,
In any
which
case, they
is
haven't been their Italy has not been their same old selves of the last decade as far as the World Cup is concerned.
yeah, and I think it's great to win something. Obviously, the US isn't winning Copa America or even Gold Cup anymore. So hats off to Italy winning Euros, but we're talking about what is just fine. Is Italy just fine because they won a Euros and they're still not making the World Cup, or are they expecting more? I think some of these larger countries go into every World Cup expecting to win it too. I think if you're a Germany or an Italy, you're expecting to win it or at least get close.
Yeah,
And are,
quarterfinals,
are we doing the
semifinals.
same thing as the US? As the US, are we expecting the same but not having the same level to get to that point of expectation?
Well, clearly all these teams are struggling in their own way. I'm not going to pretend to know the kind of detail about Germany, Italy, Nigeria. I know next to nothing as far as the specifics of their team and the dynamics and so on. Um, I think in the end, these types of teams, because of the increased field from what is it, 32 to 48,
Yep.
I think these teams are gonna be just fine. I don't think they can keep losing important matches, and let's face it, any World Cup qualifier is important.
For
Um,
sure.
I think they're gonna be fine because of the expanded field. That's my
Yeah.
sense anyway.
Well, and you got more teams making it because of that expanded field. But just to go to the point out of maybe you not knowing necessarily some more details on these teams, right? We're talking Germany losing to Slovakia 2-0 the other day. We might get into that one later, but um, that's a bad loss for a team like Germany, even if it was potentially on the road. It was on the road, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
So, never an easy game, but they lost. We're looking at an Italy side who, under Gennaro Gattuso now, a legendary player, they almost drew or lost to Israel. And I mean, no hate to Israel on a sporting side of things, but um, that's not a team Italy should even be close with in a game. Winning that 5-4, I mean, good for them, but I think it just goes to show these things like Nigeria is not even in a position to automatically qualify for the World Cup right now in the African Confederation. And there's teams like Rwanda who might have a better chance than them. And once again, no hate on Rwanda. I'm sure they have some good players, but we're talking about Nigeria here, who has a long history of being that good. So I guess my question is I'm trying to figure out what side the US falls on right now. Is the expectation there to be good, like one of these other 3 teams we brought up? Or are we are we almost the Rwandas and the Slovakias of the world, even though we're so much bigger in size? Are we those teams that, we should be happy with beating Japan in a friendly. We should be happy with kind of where we're at with all this turnover. Maybe not happy, but more understanding of where we're at.
I think more understanding is a good way to put it. The US is not on the same level as Germany and Italy. Just not the same tier at all. Nigeria, I think we're in the same tier, probably a higher tier than them, even though they've had a solid history. So I will say, as just a fan of the game, I'm excited by the fact that some of these big teams are losing at times, and the Israels and Rwandas of the world competing. I mean, the fact that Israel scored 4 goals against a German team, yeah, it's a loss, but wow, what a moral victory.
Sorry, it was
And
Italy.
that's
Italy, not Germany.
oh, I'm sorry. But
You're
like,
good. You're good.
what a stepping stone, right? I mean, when you're not a great squad, like, you'll take moral victories like that because that's
Yeah.
how you build. And so I don't think if we're talking about winning the World Cup, no, the Israels, the Rwandas, the Nigerias, and unfortunately, sorry, the US, we are not in the running to win the World Cup. But having 48 teams next summer, could we get some big surprises? I think we will. And I'm looking forward to it. Like, awesome. That's why you play. And I
Well, and
want to
I
see
hate
these
to
smaller.
sorry, I was just gonna say, I mean, I hate to say it too, being American, but, the NFL has a great saying, "Any given Sunday." And I think we're kinda getting to that point in soccer now, maybe international soccer more than anything, because teams can just beat each other now. I mean, we saw Saudi Arabia beat Argentina at the last World Cup, and, Argentina went on to win the whole thing, but still, Saudi Arabia beat the eventual world champions. So, I think to your point is the playing field leveling out in a sense? And maybe should we take that into consideration as US fans? Um, we probably have been getting better. Maybe it doesn't seem like it because we haven't necessarily advanced further in the World Cup or won a Copa America or some bigger title, but is everyone else just kind of on the same wavelength? I mean, we played a Japan team today who's ranked 17th in the world. That's 2 rankings below us, and we beat them 2-0. That's a pretty good win, for
eh,
any team. Like,
it,
Japan beat Germany a few years ago too.
I, yes, it's a pretty good win. Definitely something to be proud of, especially after the result against Korea the other night. Um, I, I I think we'll have to spend another podcast talking about the rankings. I'm not so sure that U.S. is the 15th best team in the world, um, but that's for a different discussion, a different day.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, listen, smaller countries, countries you don't think about, are improving, and that's
yeah,
good for the game.
for sure.
I want to see the upsets. I mean, why do you think we do Underdog of the Week? We love
Yeah,
that. I think it's good for the sport. I think it's a good wake up call for a Germany or a US or
yeah.
Italy or whoever it is. Like, hey, take these guys seriously. These men take their craft seriously, so you better bring
Their
it, man. You
job.
are not
It's
going to
everyone's
sleep well.
job. It's their job, and, we had that whole
Yeah.
argument this summer about, maybe Pulisic and some of the guys on the US team not taking it seriously or like their job, right? Um, so I think, yeah, we'll see what ends up happening kind of as time goes on here. And I'm sure, like you said, we'll have many other conversations about where the US is actually placed, where some of these other teams are actually placed in the world rankings, in our opinion. But I think international soccer as our big thing of the week, that I don't even think we mentioned, but this is our kind of big thing of the week is, the playing ability and where we're at is shrinking. I guess the gap in between it is shrinking. These teams are no longer as afraid to play the top teams anymore simply because they almost have the same resources, They're getting towards the same resources as these other countries. So I think, like you said, it'll be really interesting to see 2026 with the expanded format. And maybe we get some surprises and maybe the US surprises us too. You never know.
We will see. I'm going to just quickly throw out a historical term. I don't know if I've even mentioned on the pod that I'm a high school history teacher, but there's a term out there, the Great Convergence, and that is the gap closing between the world's powers like the US, like the former Soviet Union, things like that, and the countries that used to be colonized and controlled by the larger countries. I think you're seeing the beginnings anyway of a great convergence in soccer. And I'm okay with that.
Whether it's the internet, coaching, simply just globalization in general. I think, that's a larger history lesson, but I think those are all factors in these teams being better and getting closer, to being as good as the big countries and making population and size not really matter. But I think to your point, Dad, we're gonna continue to see this trend onwards as we get into 2026 for a huge World Cup here in the States, which I know we're both looking forward to. And like you said, we're probably going to see some underdogs come through at the 2026 World Cup. But until then, we need your underdog of the week for right now, this past week. A lot of international football to choose from. Who did you see? What did you like?
Well, we already alluded to it a little bit, and that's fine. But Slovakia is my underdog of the week. Yes, you're correct. The game was on the road for Germany, which means it was a home match for Slovakia. But to win 2-0, that's a solid score. I mean, to shut out a German team with some very talented players, that's impressive. So, not to just win, but to shut out a German team that should not be shut out very often. And I think I think the stat, well, you've got it up here. It looks like this is a 52 match unbeaten run on the road for the German squad. I mean, they in World Cup qualifiers, like they don't lose,
Yeah.
they lost. So you could say they were due, right? It happens to the best teams. Um, Slovakia is not exactly the team you probably would have had on your bingo card to be the team to beat them on the road. But I love it. I love to see it. And so Slovakia is my underdog of the week.
It's funny too, Dad. I believe, and I don't want to get it mixed up. I believe actually a guy who I went to college with, his parents are from Slovakia. So shout out to him, because it's a country I want to go check out at some point. And yeah, good for them breaking that winning streak. And it reminded me actually, England I just saw today. They have an unbeaten streak in World Cup qualifying. I think dating back the last at least 15 years. Their last loss came against Ukraine, 1-0. Funny enough, but it to your point, it happens, but also it goes back to our other point of the convergence and seeing these teams kind of maybe start reaching the level and matching the level of the larger nations, right?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
what's
and
your
I think
upset of the week?
yes,
Your
yes. Well, I was gonna
underdog.
say in line with what we're saying, right? This kind of convergence. I don't even think, and you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't think this was a country very long ago. Kosovo beat Sweden 2-0. And I mean, that's a big win for a small country like that. That's fought for a lot more than anything in football, I know. But what a win for them. That's kind of a statement win, especially against a team that has the attacking threat that Sweden does. I mean, Dad, you got to at least know one of the guys in that forward line, right? Can you name him?
Our boy Jokeres.
Yes, yes, that's one of them. And what's crazy to say is he's playing second fiddle in that team to the British record transfer fee now, Alexander Isak. So you're talking about a team that has two world-class players and plenty of other talent all over the field. Kosovo, I could not name a player from the country, and I apologize for that, but I don't even think there's a player maybe in the top five leagues of Europe from Kosovo, and I'm probably wrong on that, but I don't know any off the top of my head. I would you know any?
That well, if you don't know any, I don't know any. So as the teacher, I'm going to give you homework.
Yes.
Next week, you are going to find out a player or two from the the Kosovo team that plays in one of the bigger leagues in the world. There's got to be somebody. This is not the
I'm
Bad News Bears. That's an old movie before your time. But like they've got to have somebody, right? I mean, once again,
for
another
sure.
shutout, just like Slovakia, shutting out these teams with really good attacks. That's impressive, man.
It's a big deal, and I think good for them. Even if they don't make the World Cup, that's something to write home about. So yes, I will take the homework. I will go find a few players from Kosovo, and do them their due diligence from the national team there, especially for getting that big win. So excited to do that. And excited for these underdogs and kind of what they did this past week here. But I think the big thing now is we're back to club football. I think international breaks are interesting. You kind of love them, you kind of hate them, because you just want to watch the clubs. At the end of the day, it's where it's at right now until the World Cup, and we have another huge match this week. Staying in England, I promise we won't stay in England for every match of the week, but this is too big and too historical of a match to pass up on for the week, and it's Manchester City versus Manchester United in the Manchester Derby. It's going to be a huge one, and talk about two clubs kind of in a weird spot right now. You could say City's been the better one the last decade, maybe 2 decades almost, but they're not doing too hot right now either. And Manchester United simply have never been the same since Sir Alex Ferguson, and they don't look much better. I mean, barely beating Burnley isn't exactly something to hold your head high on, unfortunately. No disrespect, but
No, the game is at the Etihad, isn't it? I think it's a City
I
home game.
believe, I believe
Uh,
so. Yeah,
so I'm gonna go out here on the limb real quick. It's
yeah,
early in the season, but City has to win this game. This is a must win because I know we've already played the higher or lower game with and you said City would finish higher than 13th or wherever they are right now. Um, this is a home game against their rival, and
biggest.
yeah, they've got to win. They cannot draw this. They have got to win, and honestly, I think they need to win convincingly, like a 3-1 kind of score. I
I
just
mean,
think,
do
yeah.
you think Pep and his reputation, in his current state, not what he's done, not his legacy, but his current reputation, do you think it's on the line if he loses this game, especially to a manager in Ruben Amorim that has very much struggled? I know he's only had probably about 8 months, 9 months in the job now, but you got to think Pep is in a little bit of a hot seat here if he loses at home to United.
Um, I think his reputation is intact. I don't think this hurts his reputation, but hot seat, are you implying job security or just kind of feeling the heat a little bit in general?
I mean, listen, I don't think Pep is going to get sacked. His contract, I believe, either only goes through this year or next year. He signed a short extension last year to stay on. And I think he's trying to lead one more revolution through Manchester City to kind of turn the team around. But I just don't see it right now. I don't think it's the players either. I think Pep's style is running its course with that group. Um, and I think he's trying to fit kind of a square peg in a round hole right now with the guys he brought in. Some really talented guys he brought in. Tiani Reinders looks fantastic. Ryan Cherky, one of the bargains of the summer, a young French talent there. You got Erling Haaland up top, so you still have good players, but I think you have to be a little worried with where it's going. And I think this is where the two teams are similar, Dad. You tell me if you think differently, but both managers are trying to fit square pegs in round holes. Ruben Amorim won't change his 3-5 or 3-4-2-1, and Pep won't change his system really. Neither of them are adapting because they want to play their way. Do you think that's a problem, especially you being a coach, not being adaptable?
I think you have to play with the players you have, not the players you wish you had or the players you used to have. So I think they've got to be adaptable. I think Pep can maybe get away with it more because of his reputation and his record. Um, I think he probably has convinced himself that it has brought players in who are going to work in his system. It's just going to take a little more time. That's fine. Here's the thing for City and why I think this is such a must win for them. They lose this game or even a draw. I guess a draw is acceptable. They lose this match at home. Okay, you lost the Manchester Derby. That's not fun. Guess where City has to go the following week? They have to go to the Emirates and play Arsenal.
Straight to the
Can you
Emirates.
yeah,
Straight to the
can you
Emirates.
imagine getting a little ahead of ourselves? Can you imagine City losing at home to their rival and then going on the road and losing to Arsenal, like, now alarm bells are starting to go off. Like, unlikely, but man, oh man, if that happens, maybe the Heat
You
does
can't
turn up
ever
on
say
Pep a little.
never say never. You can't say never, right? You never can say never in football. You never know what's going to happen. Manchester United, with how abysmal they have been over the years recently, they still have shown up against City. That's one thing I will praise them for, is they don't ever really not show up against City, which is what you do when you're playing your rivals. So, I mean, I know you took a break last week, but I want to make a prediction on the game, actually. Again, I was almost right, I believe, with my Chelsea prediction over City last week in the WSL. I think I said 2-0 and Chelsea won 2-1. Am I right?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. So we're close. We're close there. But for this City United game, I'm going to say City win 4-0 and completely go against what I just said. But I think City's going to dominate and kind of show up United. I just don't think United's been at it since the start of the season. I know it's early, but they just don't look that good to me. Even the one game against Arsenal, they had momentum and they still couldn't do anything.
Um, predictions. I'll do it for you this week. I'm going to go with the score I think I threw out there was 3-1. Didn't I mention 3-1? I think. Um, that feels about what it's going to be like. I
I
don't
think you
think
did.
City lose this game. Um, and then of course, the following week, I hope they lose to Arsenal on the road.
Yes, yes, we will both hope for that, but we will see what happens with that. I like both predictions though. We're both going with City this week. Let's see where it all goes. But now, Dad, we do have higher or lower again, and I don't know if you brought any for me, but I actually think I have a couple for you that could be kind of fun.
All right. Well, I do not have any, so you go
Yeah.
for it, and I'll do the best I can.
All good, all good. This is interesting, right? There's obviously, you're my dad, so we have a bit of an age gap, but higher or lower, the United States winning a World Cup in our lifetimes, higher or lower than one?
Or lower than winning one World Cup.
One World Cup in the rest of our lifetimes. Let's hope that's, another 30, 40 years here we got, which would mean another 10 World Cups probably max.
Um, I'm gonna go lower. I I think you've got too many. We just talked about this so-called great convergence of sorts. I think you've got other countries coming up to make it harder. CONCACAF is getting more competitive. Um, I'm not going to go off on a tangent right now about the fact that, I feel a little better after the win against Japan today, but how I'm not even so sure how well the U.S. would have qualified if this wasn't in the U.S. next summer,
Good point.
especially if there was not an expanded field. But that
For sure.
aside, um, I, we've come a long way in the last 35 years. I think we have a long way to go. So I'm going to say I don't think we're going to win a World Cup. And I think these other countries like Germany, like England, like Argentina, like Brazil, I just think they're still too far ahead of us. So, um, I'm 54. Hopefully I've got 30 years left. Listen, how about this? Uh, I think we will make it to the semifinals in my lifetime.
Hey,
I don't even know if we make a final, dude.
you never know. With this convergence we've talked about, Dad, we could make the final this year. Things could get crazy. You never know, right? That's that American spirit we all talk about here. that we have. You never know, especially maybe being the underdogs we could see. But I like the take. I have one more for you here. This one hits a little home, especially with the pressure on the team right now. Some of it got released with the result a couple weeks ago, but higher or lower? How many trophies does Mikel Arteta win with Arsenal before he either leaves, gets sacked, whatever it may be? I'm setting the line at three. Three trophies. And that's anything over Community Shield. So that can be League Cup, FA Cup, Premier League, Champions League, the whole shebang.
Ooh, you set a tough line there at 3. Uh
Had to make it difficult.
I like it. I like the challenge.
I'll tell you
I'm
my
gonna
answer when you're done.
yeah, I'm gonna go under. I think we win. Because we're Arsenal fans. I think we win 1 or 2 cups in his time. Probably more likely a Carabao Cup, an FA Cup, which he already won an FA Cup like 5 years
So
ago, right?
So I guess that's the thing here. Should we make this? He's already won one. Let's make this a two-pronged question. Do you think he can get over three with the one he has? And or do you think he can win another three? So that's two questions I'm asking. So
Yeah,
you already said no to winning another three. Do you think he can get to three though, or over three with the one FA Cup he has now?
yeah. So I think he probably wins 2 more cups, probably of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup variety. Um, I just I just don't see him winning the Premier League or Champions League. So I'm going to say 2 more cups, probably a couple of FA Cups is my guess. What about you?
Well, I hate to say it, I think the same, but actually in a different way.
Okay.
I don't think we've ever looked good in the domestic cups besides that first year when Arteta was in charge. I kind of don't. I think he like doesn't really care about him. I know we made it to the semifinals of the League Cup last year against Newcastle, and then we just dropped it. We can't take the high pressure situations in those English cups. It seems like I don't know why, um, but I actually think Arteta gets one trophy and I think it's either going to be the Premier League or the Champions League. I don't think it's going to be both, but I think for some reason that magic in the Champions League last year, it gave me the inkling of hope that there's something there with this squad. Maybe it's not in Arteta's power, but maybe it's within this squad's power to make it happen.
All right. Well, like I said last week, we don't have an assistant, so one of us needs to start keeping track of some of this stuff. And so we
I'll,
can
I'll make. I'm keeping it on the docket. I'm keeping it on the docket, so we'll follow along as the time goes by. And not to shock you, I actually do have one more, and this is a hometown one to kind of make it a little interesting. We'll keep this one short and quick.
All right.
The Colorado Rapids. Lots going on with them this past summer. Signed Rob Holding, the legend himself. Also signed Paxton Aronson, actually a really talented young U.S. player who I hope can kind of develop here a bit. But my question about the Rapids, we've both already seen it in our lifetimes. They have won an MLS Cup. They have won the whole thing. Um, Over, under, or higher or lower the next time they win a championship, 10 years.
I'll take I'll take lower. I think the Rapids, they've made some decent moves. No, they're not getting these big splashy players like a Leo Messi, those big names coming over from Europe
Which they have
necessarily,
little chance of anyways, right?
right? But I would say lower. I think I could see them winning one in the next 5 to 7 years. The manufactured parity in MLS gives me hope. And I think the Rapids are a solid organization. So I'm going to go lower, somewhere in the 5 to 7 year range.
I like it. I think I'd agree with you, and I actually really like Chris Armas as a coach, I like Patrick Smith in the front office. I actually think we just have a good group, like you said right now, in terms of the organization there. I think they're all level headed and are trying to make smart moves even when it doesn't look like it. And I think it's going to happen. It will happen for the Rapids. And I don't think we're going to go backwards right now, at least, especially with the moves made this year. So excited to see how that happens. I thought that'd be a fun one for the hometown team. But yeah, that is higher or lower for the week. All right, and welcome to the last segment of the episode, everyone. I am having technical difficulties just like Rayo Vallecano and Barcelona on VAR last week, but we still have the VAR You Serious moment of the week. And Dad, it's Manchester City finding a way back into the episode again. Whether it's good or bad, they're always kind of finding their way in.
Yeah, they are. I'm assuming that will not last every single week, but if it does, it does. We go with what the football world provides us.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting topic. It's kind of what I've worked in football, so I kind of understand what they're talking about here. But essentially, the Premier League works on an associated party transaction rule that they brought in 2021, which essentially means things along the line of fair market value, Dad. So when Newcastle got taken over essentially by Saudi Arabia, let's be real here, the PIF. Um, the Premier League brought this in as a way of these kind of state owned clubs and large owners not being able to bankroll their commercial revenue with their subsidiaries, essentially. So the PIF can't just say, all their companies are giving Newcastle hundreds of millions of dollars because that's not fair market value, especially if the company has no worth whatsoever. There's been some of those jokes of, oh, this company doesn't even have a website, like it's not real. That stuff has fortunately been pushed out. But of course, as they always do, Man City comes to the table and says, wait a minute, that's not fair. We should be able to put in and bring in however much money we want from whatever partners we want because, they fair well know that their commercial partners are owned by their owners and they can give as much money as they want. Um,
Well, I think the idea is that they've got to make sure that the valuations are fair, right? And that's certainly not my expertise. I believe the Premier League tries to get involved and approve these deals. I'm sure they've got people, accountants, and different people private equity, whatever, that can make these
Economics,
valuations.
right?
Yeah,
Just
I
looking at
mean,
basic
as,
economy.
as long as the deals I think are fair, their fair market value. Um, Listen, this is the state of the game in the world today, and it's not like Man City's the only club kind of playing this shell game. I think Chelsea is. I'm sure you could name a lot more.
I'm sure
Um,
Arsenal is to an extent. I'm sure Manchester United are. I'm sure they all are. But the point of all this being is the legal dispute between Manchester City and the Premier League on this. Manchester City, tried to say that doesn't seem right, and Premier League was like, well, it's the rule. They both dropped legal proceedings. And I think they were tired of it. I think they both didn't want to go on anymore. Probably because the Premier League is dealing with enough legal disputes, I'm sure, and with Manchester City in other ways too. So I'm
yeah,
wondering if this is part of some more elaborate scheme, right? In terms of what's going on. But my question here is, on the red card basis, yellow card basis, and no call basis is what do we think of Manchester City and the Premier League in all of this? Dropping the legal proceedings on this, does this show Manchester City is actually applying to the rules and this is nothing to be concerned about? Or is this a red card in the sense of why are the legal proceedings just being dropped when Man City was adamant that the fair market value didn't need to mean anything for them or other clubs?
there's multiple parts here. So I think For me, what Man City is doing is because of the state of the game, it doesn't surprise me. For me, there's really no call there. Where the yellow card comes in, and boy, I wanted to reach for that red card a little bit, is the lack of transparency on this. Like, we don't even exactly know what the deal was between the Premier League and Man City. We don't have
Yes.
details. We just know that they've settled and
Yes.
we're going to move on. And this really makes me concerned about the 115 or 130 or whatever charges against Man City. Is the same thing going to happen? Are we going to have a lack of transparency? Is there going to be some small penalty or no penalty for that stuff? That's where my concern really lies. So, no call on the surface, certainly a yellow card for the complete lack of transparency.
And I think, I agree with you on those terms. I think to a certain extent it's fully no call, actually. I think this is finally Manchester City maybe getting in their lane a little bit, potentially because of what could be coming um, from other cases. Right, we're talking 115 charges for accounting breaches and many other things under Premier League rules. And I think this is actually great. The Premier League finally was like, you know what? We're not dealing with you on this. You're distracting us from the main purpose of your other, disciplinary actions. We're going to drop this. You can still bring in Etihad, Puma, these partners that your owners are already involved in. You can still bring them in. You just need to keep going through the fair market value process like every other club does. And I think Manchester City finally bowed down to it, like we said earlier, too, because of the fact that they haven't been as good in the last year or two now. I think they're finally realizing they're going to need to play by the rules to make sure the bleeding doesn't get worse, which I definitely think it could, and I know you think the same way.
Yeah, this part of the game bothers me. I just want to watch some games this weekend. Feeling good, not good, but better about the U.S. Still have a lot of question marks. Looking forward to those October games, especially the one here in Denver against Australia. Um, let's just focus on the action on the field and have a good weekend here with games.
Focus on the love of the sport, right? I always have to bring in the business side because I've seen it, and I think it's interesting as well. But to your point, Dad, we all watch the sport for a reason. We love it. We love what happens on the field, and good luck to Manchester City and all the other teams coming back this weekend. I know I'm excited to watch the Premier League again. I know you are too, and every other league around the world. My Colorado Springs Switchbacks, shout out to them. They're making a run right now in the USL Championship, looking really good. The Rapids, maybe they can do the same. But yeah, club football is back, Dad. I think this is a great wrap up of the week here. And I know we'll have another great podcast next week for the whole crew here.
All righty. Sounds good, bud. Have a great trip to Seattle, and we'll do this again next week.
Sounds great, Dad. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will talk with you all next week. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Well, folks, I guess it's just me here, all by my lonesome. I can talk to myself. I do it all the time. So, la da 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 la da 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 da. Now I'm hiding. Now you see me. Now you don't. You gotta love technology. Let's see if Dylan gets back on here sometime sooner rather than